Today, the word of the day is chocolate. I love chocolate, and for you all, the word could be pizza or French fries or burger or whatever it is, your favorite food that you feel irresistible pull and you feel you get cravings for, all those kind of foods that I'm talking about. And if you can hear me, okay, that's going to be great. If you can let me know in the chat. I'm very excited for today's conversation. This changed my life. This understanding changed my life a decade back, and I actually understood why do I feel out of control when I start eating those foods, and why telling somebody, "Oh, cut down your portions," is absolutely ineffective and in a way not making fun, but it's actually a ridiculous advice. It never works, and we all experience that when we start eating our dessert or whatever the so-called drug of choice, and we try to limit our portions. It's like the motivation dies and you feel out of control. And how about in the face of cravings? Many people tell me that after dinner they have to have something sweet, or when they are hit by craving, they feel powerless around it, right? So this is what we are going to be talking today. What happens in the brain? Why do we get such cravings? And what is it about this kind of food that the modern world is overflowing with? Okay. So, first of all, if any of you have your favorite foods that you feel you have strong cravings for or you feel out of control around, please let me know in the chat. Just type in the name of your favorite food like chocolate or a pizza or French fries. Like yesterday, I went to a birthday party where literally every mom was saying that French fries is something that my child cannot live without. Literally. Okay. The child doesn't need anything other than the French fries. And so that's a child. What is your favorite food that you feel like life without that food is going to be super boring? Right. Right. Okay. For me, it is ice cream. uh, I don't feel out of control around ice cream anymore because of this work. But that used to be when I used to struggle with extra weight and cravings and compulsive eating and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So, what is that food for you? When you come back from work and you have strong urges to maybe overeat your normal affair, the home cooked foods these days also, we have kind of, I will just get into that in a moment. We are actually drugifying every sort of food that we are eating, and we are going to get into that discussion. So let me start by saying that the modern day food the modern day foods like chocolate and pizza and French fries and even the Mughlai cuisine that are made in the restaurants, the Chinese food, anything that you eat from outside, these foods have super concentrated amounts of sugar, fat, and salt. Okay. So all the foods that are prepared artificially in the industries, they are carefully curated and engineered, and millions of dollars are spent on engineering these foods to hit what they call as the bliss point in our brain. Like, oh, when you eat them you feel as if like, wow, now let's talk, now life looks tolerable. Now after a busy day of work or a busy work week, I deserve a donut, right? We feel entitled to eat such kind of foods, and we have all this vocabulary around such kind of foods. Like I meet people at the parties, and they're like, "Oh, don't look at me. Today is my cheat day, or today this is my cheat meal," and it's okay, Anu. Isn't it okay to eat some some of these foods in life, of course it's okay, and I don't recommend that you give up such foods, but understand what these foods are doing to us and our society as a whole. Okay, so these artificially created foods and the foods that have excess amounts of sugar, fat, and salt, like man today has invented this fourth kind of flavor which never existed in our prehistoric times, that hit the bliss point. Okay, and there is a reward pathway in your brain, which is in your primitive brain, the brain that we are carrying since we were in caveman, since we were caveman and cave women. Like that stone age brain neurology is still firmly installed in our brains. Okay, and we still have that brain, and that reward pathway is in that brain, and it's connected to the higher brain, and that entire reward pathway gets hijacked. It gets stimulated first, like literally understand the word stimulation. I'm going to describe it like ding 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 ding. So there's this buzz and there's this stimulation when we eat such foods, and we feel good when that stimulation happens. Okay, now, the thing is, when we consume such artificially created pleasure of today's times, our reward pathways are hijacked such that the higher brain, which is the executive decision making part of your brain, is literally compromised. Okay, we are adults, and we make such amazing decisions and we are going after our dreams, but when it comes to food, or I'll talk in a moment as to what all hijacks the reward pathways, when it comes to all such things, we feel slaves to them, right? Like we're having our favorite food and we want to stop, but we literally feel I can't stop, and we stop when we have overeaten and when our pants are busting, and we feel like get me a crane to pick me up, right? Yeah. Okay, so our executive part of the brain, the decision making part of the brain, literally is compromised. And it's not that there's something wrong with that person who feels out of control around food, and I have this amazing willpower which you do not have. All a myth. This happens as a phenomenon in all human brains. Okay, now hijacking of the reward pathways happen because of release of a neurotransmitter which is all the rage these days, and I'm sure you've heard of it, which is called dopamine. Like people say that I want my dopamine fix and I want my dopamine hit. They literally do not understand what exactly dopamine is doing and how it functions and how it enslaves them to keep chasing the happiness that they get out of food. Now, listen, there's nothing wrong in enjoying the food that you eat. It is quintessential for living an amazing, enriching life. But the fine line difference is when you become enslaved and imprisoned, and when there's a craving and you get up literally like a slave to pursue that craving. That is what dopamine does. When dopamine is triggered, this is the neurotransmitter which says, hey, this is good for my survival. Let's remember where I got this and let's do it again. So recently, the scientists earlier in the 1980s recognized dopamine as this neurotransmitter which was associated with only pleasure. Like you eat that food, you drink alcohol, you smoke cigarettes, you are on social media getting those likes, and we have drugified everything. Okay, we've drugified intimacy, we've drugified connection, we've drugified our food, we've drugified everything, like artificially stimulating our brains 24/7. So when dopamine is released, more than the pleasure that it gets, it is a neurotransmitter of motivation. That means it tells your brain, listen, remember, this is essential for survival. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And when you do not do that again, dopamine keeps you in this restless anxious state. So no wonder when you have that past association and your past dopamine is getting triggered, and it's telling you, get up, let's go for an ice cream, let's go for an ice cream, let's get the social media hit, let's I don't have that much of those many likes, and I'm not admired, and I'm not getting connected, and all that sources of artificially created dopamine makes us restless and makes us run and chase and pursue, which literally is not making you grow in life. It's actually short charging your potential in life. Okay, if we do not understand what's happening, we are literally wasting our life force behind that pursuit rather than actually pursuing our truest desires. Okay, so coming back to dopamine, so this tells our brain, hey, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again. And if you do not do it again, the dopamine ensures that you experience restlessness and anxiety, and you literally freak out. Okay, the other fascinating thing which blew my mind when I learned about it, when I learned about dopamine, was that every single time you pursue and you get that dopamine hit from artificially created pleasure, what happens is this nature has ensured a balance mechanism in our brains. Okay, the nature is very smart. So for every dopamine hit, the nature, the brain pursues the balance between the pleasure and the pain. In simple terms, it means that when you get that artificial pleasure, the pain is right around the corner. The scientists have discovered that the reward pathways of pleasure and pain overlap. So it is the next fascinating aspect is not just the pain is right around the corner of when you get the pleasure, the brain has to ensure the balance, the homeostasis, so it makes sure that you experience pain. How crazy is that? The other thing is the pain is more intense and everlasting. What? Seriously, this blew my mind. So, what happens is, like, let's imagine there's this scale, and you are like pressing the pleasure lever. Okay, the pleasure is getting pressed. At the same time, the brain is working hard to ensure that you also experience pain. Now, what happens is when you are pursuing, when you're getting repeated exposures of dopamine in life and repeated pleasure hits, artificially created pleasure hits, what happens is in the brain, the dopamine receptors, in order to maintain the homeostasis, which is in simple words, balance, down regulates. What it means is now just one cookie won't do it. Now you have that inner urge to finish the whole packet. Okay. Now, just one ice cream on Monday once a month is living this boring, crazy, weird life. You have to have a sweet every single day. Now, just smoking one cigarette, which earlier gave you a kick, will not do it. You have to, become a chain smoker. This is the beginning of addiction. Let me tell you, there's a lot of negative connotation attached with the word addiction. I for the longest time resisted. Like, I was like, hello, why are we calling this an addiction? When it comes to food, how can food be addicting unless there are journals and medical research out there that has proven this phenomenon? If you look at the brain scans of after we consume intense amount of sugar, fat, salt combination, and we do that repeatedly, we are repeatedly getting exposed to that, the dopamine down regulates, and that can be seen on the brain scans. That's the brain scan of an addict brain. Okay, so understand that the food addiction is also true, and instead of having this negative connotation attached with the word addiction, it's more empowering to understand this so that you can take something so you can take an empowering step forward. When we stay in denial in life, we can't do anything about it, and we keep coming up with reasons and justifications as to why I am weak willed and I'm better off being fat because I love food so much, right? I have this sweet tooth, and that's why मेरा तो कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता, right? What's a life? And then we have all these thoughts like, hello Anu, we shouldn't be so strict and blah 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 blah. You get the picture. Okay, so coming back to dopamine, so remember that when we get those pleasure hits, our normal life, literally there is down regulation of the pleasure receptors. And earlier, when Apple used to make you pleasurable, it no longer cuts it. So I always say ghia, tori, and tinde and vegetables and normal dal roti is going to be like boring. No wonder, because we are repeatedly getting hits by dopamine in our everyday life. Like it's an everyday life to have tea and shovel down 4 or 5 biscuits. We never question that, hello, what is on my table? What am I doing? Is it even worth to have that biscuits? The thing is, it's not about the biscuits. It's about you are literally wasting your dopamine currency on something which you won't even feel like it's a big deal to give it up. I would rather recommend that you make your dopamine hits to be very conscious and well planned ahead of time, so that they matter, and stop buying into this moderation and I love food or ek se kuch nahi hota and all that bullshit. Understand what your neurology, how it functions, and work with that, right? So, coming back to dopamine, so as I said, it compromises your decision making. Initially, that sugar hit and all the hit that you get from artificially created foods feels amazing, but then over time, the receptors downregulate, and the normal stuff like having an enriching conversation with your wife or husband and playing with the kids, it doesn't feel as stimulating as it can actually feel. The sunset feels boring without you taking out your phone and clicking pictures and immediately posting on social media in order to check out how many likes you get, right? That's that kind of slavery is happening in our world. And I'm just briefly mentioning, I will have a separate live for the kids. What are we doing to our kids? What are we doing to our kids? We, like yesterday in the birthday party, every single mom was like taking pride in telling me that my kid doesn't eat without tablet or smartphone or TV. Like, you are killing the kids neurology. I'll tell you about a fantastic study which was done. So they exposed all these kids, so they made the kids have sugary drink and eat a lot of sugar. And then this was a series of experiments that was done, and then they exposed them to the learning environment. And they also had a control where the kids were not fed the sugary stuff and all that, and then they had sent to the learning environment. Now, by the way, dopamine is also released when you learn something new. So, this is such a fantastic way our nature has designed our brains, right? So, our nature wants us to get that natural dopamine. And when you pursue some learning, when you have new information in life, and when you're pursuing growth, and when you are pursuing something learning new like piano lessons or pottery or whatever it is, you get that dopamine hit. How cool is that? Anyways, so they had sent the kids after intense sugar exposure, making them eat a lot of sugar and sugary stuff and the junk food stuff. So what they found is, in the group that was exposed to such kind of foods, even though they had very high IQs, they did not want to study. This blew my mind. And they did this experiment, and in the control group, all the kids were super interested to study and learn and experiment in school. Like, what are we doing to kids, feeding such things? And And it's not just about the food, as I said. We're getting them repeated exposures of smartphones and TVs 24/7. We are making their brains get stimulated and get dopamine hits. So normal life doesn't cut it. To play with, each other and have conversations and, just normal kiddie stuff, which our generation used to do when we did not have the smartphones and the TVs and abundance of such foods the way today's kids have, like at the tip of the button, right? So coming back to my pointers, so another fascinating thing which I will share is that whenever we have a craving, the dopamine aspect is that it gets associated with cues. Okay, so this is like the whole habit pathway. Like, you see an ad, there is this cue in the brain. Oh, you see a burger ad, it looks like, I think burger is going to be a great idea for dinner tonight. Okay, you think that, and then what happens is, just at the queue, just the queue can be your favorite restaurant, the queue could be a friend back from college with whom you had lots and lots of memories, to lots of memories, having beer um and foods and junk foods, all that. So those are all cues that your brain has associated with dopamine. So dopamine is released, not in that much of quantity, little amount of dopamine hit you get. And now that dopamine hit is followed by the hit that you have at the, like, the normal amount of homeostasis go below the baseline, meaning now you are restless. There is no dopamine in your system. So this is like this. So first you had this height, and now it goes down. And now all of a sudden you feel this intense craving to pursue that activity. Okay, such that when that expectation is not fulfilled, you're worse off than started. This is what happens when we make plans and the plans don't work out. So when we make plans for vacations or going to our favorite restaurant or anything of that sort, we get this dopamine hit. We're very excited. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of motivation. It's looking forward. It's the neurotransmitter of pursuit. Okay, more than the pleasure, it's a neurotransmitter of pursuit. So you are motivated to get up and go after that. Okay, so it's the neurotransmitter of actually chasing that thing. Okay, so now there's not even a baseline of dopamine which we have in our day to day lives, and you get this dip and you're restless and you're anxious. You are like, oh my god, I better make sure that my plans are meet my expectation. And in neuroscience it's called reward prediction error. So you were expecting a reward, your brain was looking forward for that reward, and all of a sudden that reward is not there, and we react out of proportion to the thing. Like, if our plans are not materialized in the way we wanted, we experience this rage and this anger, and we are blasting people off. Like, all that is because of dopamine, not you not getting your dopamine fix, you not getting your reward the way you expected. Okay, so remember that whenever you have a craving, already thinking about that craving is giving you dopamine hit. And now, if you do not understand what's happening, you are doomed. Literally, you get up and you pursue that, and you find yourself restless if you do not get your hit. That is why the diets fail. It's built inside of the diet. Diets take away all your dopamine hits. You're left with dal roti, and you're like wondering why there is something wrong with me. It is just me who wants to have such kind of foods. I'm better off being fat. That is the story of dopamine. So all these foods are taken away from your life. You do not understand what's happening. So your brain absolutely comes up with justifications as to why you have a belly, or you can't pursue exercise, or why you're better off overeating and staying fat, right? Versus you understanding what's happening, versus you understanding, now I'll give you how to pursue that. let me finish my dopamine pointers. I'll tell you the tips and hacks to overcome this primitive neurology that makes us pursue such kind of foods and all that in life. The other fascinating aspect of dopamine, as I just said, that it affects our drive to learn and actually go after our dreams. Okay. So, our culture is something like, if it feels happy, then pursue it. This is the mantra of today's generation. This is the advice that we get from all over. In fact, this is one kind of new age spirituality also. If it feels good, pursue it. Happiness is the motto of life. We do not decode the artificially created happiness by man, which is literally killing the entire generation. I read the stats recently that somewhere around 2 billion people every year die of due to lifestyle diseases, which are completely preventable. Can you imagine 2 billion people? And we are getting fanatic about COVID. Like, not a great comparison, but you got the point that I'm making. We are not taking care of our everyday health and everyday foods on our plate because we're fed this lie: if it makes you happy, it's good for you, pursue that. Okay. That is the downside of today's generation. We do not expend any effort, which is again associated with dopamine. The primitive neurology that we have had a purpose behind it. We got the food by hunting down animals after an entire day of staying hungry, and after an entire day of running after to get food, right? Now the food is over abundantly and easily available. Now when you're overeating, nobody questions you. Fine, if you're drinking in the morning, there will be people who might question, aaj to subah se shuru ho gaya. But eating is so legit and so easily available, nobody questions. In fact, our culture promotes overeating like it's nobody's business. People mind if you do not pick up what they have offered. They blackmail you. The spouses and your partners blackmail you. I made this for you. Have. In spite of being physically hungry, we are actually promoting overeating. If our kids don't eat a single meal, we worry and we tell them, listen, cleaning your plate is the most important part of the day. You better behave, you better finish the plate. I can go on and on, but you got the point that as a culture, we have been brainwashed to believe that overeating is normal, legit, easily available, so let's do it. So we're not understanding that we are trying to escape our life. Okay. The other dark side of dopamine, as I already explained you, it is related with not just equal and opposite pain which you're going to experience. Your normal day to day life becomes boring and actually painful. You cannot wait to escape your normal life and binge at your cheat meals. Okay. People tell me that after 5 days, once a week, can I binge? So it's not that you're eating once a week, whatever these kind of foods. It's the everyday compulsion to escape from your life. Okay. You're not understanding that as long as I do not work on this urge and this restlessness, and my entire relationship with myself and with food and my brain, not understand what's happening in my brain, diet after diet, overeating, diet after diet, this is a cycle which ensues, which is inbuilt in our systems. Okay. So the pain threshold decreases. So now, if somebody like shouts at you, if your boss shouts at you, if your child just gets the scratch, what is happening? We have over insulated us to experience no amount of pain. Like, we've over insulated us to experience literally no pain. We have over sanitized and we have over insulated ourselves to experience any kind of pain. So, not just the dopamine increases our pleasure threshold. So, earlier one drink used to do it. Now You need the drink every single day. Earlier, one cookie used to cut it. Now you need to devour the entire packet. Now you cannot wait for your cheat meals. And earlier, so you need more and more of that stuff, okay, to get the normal feeling, right? To tolerate your life that you are wanting to escape. But the pain threshold also comes down. Now, the little nuances of every instances send people to depression valley, if that's a word. Literally, it makes people experience this intense amount of pain, which in seemingly inconsequential situations. Okay, it has little amount of anything which is harsh weather, or you not getting the afternoon AC. Even I react if I don't get the AC, and if the current goes away, I am not comfortable. And I can watch myself and my brain give me this non-stop commentary like, how dare, why did the current go away, and I'm sweating. So the point being, we have over insulated us, and we are over insulating the next generation and our kids also, to not experience any kind of pain. Like, any time the child cries, and our instinct is to hand over the candy and don't cry, as if crying is something which is extremely painful. You're not supposed to be crying. And I'm telling you that as a human being, life is 50-50. And as long as you're pursuing this pleasure, you are increasing the pain. Okay, how crazy is that? The pain is always going to be a part of life, and our attempt to escape from pain, our attempt to escape from everyday life through the cheat meals and the parties and this artificially created stuff which gives us the dopamine hit itself, is bringing suffering in everyday life. How, that's the irony. Okay, the entire attempt, when we are not willing to experience even the negative emotions, and we short charge them by distracting ourselves, and by, eat something, and there's something wrong with you if you experience happy, because in our mind it is fed that if you're not happy, there is something wrong with you. And see, take this candy, let's go out, let's party, let's have alcohol. Okay, and we've made this kind of life where we cannot wait to escape from our reality, and we want the dopamine hits constantly. Okay, so that's all about dopamine. I'm just checking if I covered everything. Like, my question to you is, forget about promoting something physically and emotionally demanding. What is it in our everyday life that we do which is physically hard and emotionally demanding? Like, if you look back in your day, like, I remember a conversation I had in a party recently, and my friend said that, oh, weekends are the best part of my life. I cannot wait to have this mini escape. And this made me think that we have come to a point where literally we've overstimulated ourselves by all these artificial things. And no wonder our everyday life, our everyday walk is painful. So painful that we have this compulsive drive to escape it. And then we justify that escape. Listen, having amazing fun in your life is not an issue, but get present to the energy behind it. Get present to that. If you do not do it consciously, and if you do it repeatedly, if you think that you will be exempt, that you have this special brain who can actually drink every day and party every third day and go on vacations every 15 days, if your brain is exempt from them, then sorry, you're highly mistaken. Your repeated exposures to dopamine is getting your pain to be everlasting. It is increasing your pain threshold in life, such that you would constantly be looking forward to live that vacation and to drink that drink and to live that weekend and to binge on that weekend and not go after your dreams. Why? Because pursuing your dreams is going to be painful and hard. Why bother if you can drink? Why bother losing weight or going after that money or making your dreams come true and getting that next level promotion? Why bother? Why the hard work when at night you can watch a movie and have a drink and order a pizza? You get that dopamine hit. So instead of getting that dopamine hit which nature has created by physically expending your energy and going after and pursuing that dream, which is the natural way to get that dopamine high, why even bother? Okay, you are artificially creating all that dopamine in your life. There's no need to go after that, right? So now, after all that about dopamine, let me I have written down 5 things which you can start practicing today in order to uh, sensitize yourself to more and more natural pleasure in life. Okay, step 1 is, if you think that you are somebody who feels out of control around such foods, if you are somebody who for whom this compulsive desire to escape your life, that compulsive desire to party and binge, and you can't wait for that, and your everyday life is bored, filled with boredom. By the way, have you noticed that boredom in today's generation is a trigger for pain? Like, literally, boredom has become a huge problem. Every second lady that I meet tells me that, Anu, I'm so bored. Tell me what to do. I eat when I'm bored, when I have nothing to do. And in Corona time, I was at home and I was not going after, I was not going to work. I was at home. I had easy access to food. I was eating. My kids come to me after every 2 hours and tell me that, Mama, I'm bored now. Okay. What is happening all around us? We are not letting ourselves get bored. We literally are perceiving boredom to be as something gone wildly wrong. Boredom is painful for people. You know why it is painful? Because the rest of the time you are overstimulating your nervous system and getting dopamine hits. So your normal baseline has gone to below in the minus level. Now the boredom is painful. Now boredom makes you think about your life and your relationship with yourself, and that is painful. You it's like we've all come to a point where we hate staying alone a moment. Like, I see people having phones. I'm guilty of this one too. Phones in the bathroom, until and unless I'm conscious and I stop and I work at this habit. Literally, people are filling their moments of life sticking to their smartphone even in their potties. They want to fill every second of their life, and there is no place for creation to come up on the surface, for amazing ideas to come up on the surface, for you, for your awareness to trigger, is this the right direction that I'm going in my life? Am I pursuing what I really want to pursue? Am I creating a life that deeply fulfills me? All those thoughts can come to the surface if you have some moments by your own self, where you're not watching TV or constantly listening to something playing when you are bathing, when the music is not running in the background, when you're not watching something on Netflix while sitting on the potty seat, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that any free moment that we have, any empty moment that we have, we experience restless. We're like, where's my phone? I cannot stay with my phone. My phone is not working, right? Any free moment we have, we want to fill it up with food or some artificially created pleasure, because that is where we've come to life, Okay, I always say that boredom is the place where creative ideas take. When I tell my daughter that it's good to be bored, what's the problem in being bored, she goes and then she comes up with something amazing. She creates something amazing to entertain herself. Literally, we want 24/7 for our minds, brains to be stimulated and entertained. Okay, we've come to that point. Anyways, coming to the pointers. The first pointer is, if you feel you have this compulsive urge, if you're hit by cravings, if you not stay away with sugar is my weakness, pakode is my weakness, or fast food is my weakness, you've tried dieting and every third day you are hit by cravings, you have come to a place where you have increased your threshold for pleasure, and in order to to get that threshold down such that the normal life starts appearing fascinating and amazing and interesting to you back, normal foods start tasting way better, you have to abstain from it. Moderation, again a huge topic, for some other day does not work, especially in today's time. Everybody's definition of moderation, I'm somebody who eats everything. Why are you putting that thing in your mouth? Like, seriously, get to know that I'm addicted to this stuff. I am addicted. I cannot give, like, stay away with this. So that is acknowledgement. And when you acknowledge something, only then you can change it, right? There's no shame associated with acknowledging your weaknesses. But don't cover it up with moderation, or, it's good to eat everybody. And, it's too extreme to take out sugar from your diet. It's too extreme to not eat such foods. And if somebody is forcing you to eat, you're like, it's too extreme to say no to my mother-in-law or father-in-law or sister-in-law or my mom or dad or husband's too extreme, they will feel bad. Another topic for some another day. We need tools to work around that also. Anyways, coming back to abstain for some things, for such things, for a period of time, and know that in that abstinence period, it could be 2 weeks. Research suggests 30 days, but if you abstain from such foods, the dopamine receptors grow back. There is this upregulation of dopamine receptors. After a period of 30 days, you start finding pleasure in simple foods and simple stuff of everyday life, right? So it could be 6 weeks for somebody, but abstinence is the only way out. Okay. Now, nobody tells us, people, if you go to a dietitian, that person is going to tell you that, listen, you have to use willpower, you cannot keep eating such foods and expect to lose weight. True, but they do not have the tools to know what's happening in your brain. Willpower is never going to work in such situations. It never works, by the way. When you have these urges to fight with your cravings, that's a losing battle. Until and unless you understand your neurology and work with your belief system and work with your primitive brain and all that good stuff, you're actually fighting and draining your willpower reserves to lose the battle in the end. So, anyways, abstinence is a way to grow back your dopamine receptors. An amazing concept is called constraint. Okay. Now, we already apply this in many areas of life, and we are aware that if we do not have this constraint in place, the area is not going to work that well. And this is because we already know that there are triggers in life, and that is why the rules and the constraint. But when it comes to losing weight and diet and stuff like that, we feel that it's extreme. And I also bought in between all that intuitive eating jargon. It's amazing. And this entire work, when you start working with your neurology, you will come to a place where you eat intuitively. But initially, when your reward pathways and your brain is hijacked, intuitive eating will backfire. Okay, so having food rules in place, the so-called constraint, is amazing. Okay, so having barriers in place, meaning constraint around Okay, I'm going to eat this pizza on Friday, 2 slices. When you do that, what happens is that compulsive desire, that urge, okay, I had this craving and now I'm going to eat it. What you're doing is you're reinforcing. Our brains learn by reward reinforcing. So, somewhere your brain picked up that pizza, spontaneously bigger dopamine hit, and let I'm going to do it again. Why? Because of the dopamine. Okay, so dopamine is all about doing it again. It's not really about pleasure. It's all about, I will remember this and I am going to do it again. So when your dopamine receptors are upregulated, you have plenty of dopamine. Okay, so natural things are giving you dopamine. You're not running after chasing the artificial stuff. Okay, so constraint, like when you decide ahead of time, that is why the first step that I teach in losing weight is making eating decisions ahead of time, eating decisions that you make, not from an external authority. Okay, it's time we reclaim our authority back. Because one of the thing is, when you're going to go to get a dietitian plan, your primitive brain is already telling you in the background, hasn't been this experience of yours that, listen, I don't like somebody else giving me instructions. We have this association with authority and our brain rebels. Side note, I digress a lot, right? Anyways, coming back to constraint. So when you decide ahead of time, 2 slices of pizza on Friday with whatever, like this much of French fries or whatever. So you make your precise eating plan, and then your brain has down regulated that amount of dopamine hit. One of the things about dopamine hit is this reward prediction error that I earlier explained you, that scientists call reward prediction error. What it means is there's this uncertainty which we get in gambling also. So all the, you don't know how many likes you're going to get, so bigger dopamine hit. Okay, so the gambler doesn't know whether he's going to win in the next shot or not, so bigger dopamine hit. Okay, so you don't know how much pizza you're going to eat, so bigger dopamine hit. You don't know what's there in the restaurant and what your husband will order and then what you will order and then what you will end up eating. There's this error in your brain. You're not just looking forward to that, you have this amazing dopamine hit, which itself is coming from you thinking that you know how much you're going to eat. So when you start practicing deciding ahead of time, you've taken all that extra dopamine hit. Now you're using the higher brain that God gave you, that higher brain which wants you to win in the weight loss journey and in the journey of having a solid, peaceful relationship with food. You've taken that aside, and now you've decided. You'll tell me now, Anu, you've taken out the joy, but listen, not that you've taken out this artificial joy in order to experience more joy in life. Imagine what kind of joy you're going to experience when you experience your real fulfilling truest desires. Like, have that in mind. Okay, so constraint is something that you have to design, deciding whether it is in terms of time or quantity. Better still, both in terms of times and quantity. That's number two. So first is abstinence, a period of time where you are abstaining from such foods. Number two is constraint, having well defined rules which work amazingly well. And many people who have a lot of triggering foods, for them, the constraint could be that they don't eat such foods. Okay, so if you decide that you're not going to be having sugar, listen, you're not missing out on anything in life. Let me tell you that. Okay, so I'm not recommending that you do that, but I'm suggesting that if you particularly feel that you've become imprisoned in this triggering food jail and you want to claim your power back, it's a great idea to give that up. Okay, and the other thing which I mentioned before is that a lot of dopamine is released when we learn something new. Okay, so understanding our own self throughout the life, that gives dopamine. So I tell my husband all the time that I'm going to be learning till my last breath. Don't even ever expect me to stop taking newer courses and stop reading newer books and stop pursuing newer and newer things. I love them. Okay. So if something doesn't have a net negative consequence and it's not affecting your life, that's a natural way to get your dopamine. Okay. So again, it is designed by nature for you to continue to evolve. So the other word for learning is evolution. Nature has designed us to keep evolving. If we are just sitting in our primitive brain, just looking at survival, just looking at watching Netflix, having daru and having such foods, and that is it. If that is, are just wasting a lot of potential that the universe has blessed you with. The next point is in line with this point, going designing goals for yourself. Okay, when you design a goal, and designing goals for really understanding that the goals that you design is for your evolution. When you do not have goals in life, your mind has no direction. Your primitive default brain is simply wired to repeat your past. That is what we're doing all the time, living in our past. Okay, so if you do not on purpose design goals for yourself, your higher brain has no direction. It will not come up in the scene. The executive, the part of your brain, the brilliant part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex has nothing to work for. So the primitive brain is running the scene. You have, okay, everything is mediocre, and you have no desire to go after, because as I said, all the dopamine desire is fulfilled by pressing a button, right? So when you design goals for yourselves, it entails that you step up. It really wants you, the necessary mandatory thing when you have a goal is for you to look at your limiting beliefs, to break your own glass ceiling. That is the entire purpose of the goal. And when you overcome the limiting beliefs and the thoughts and the obstacles that you have while pursuing the goal, that's a dopamine hit right there. That is the entire purpose of evolution. That is how you upregulate your neurological wiring. Okay, that is, so even if, like, everyday life, have goals for yourself in relationships, in health, in exercise, you can get creative. So that's the entire creative part of the brain. The moment you set a goal for yourself, you're actually using your prefrontal, and the more prefrontal higher brain you use, the desire to pig out and have such foods go down automatically, right? Okay, and the last point on my list is purposefully do something physically exerting and emotionally challenging in your everyday life. Like we have, um, I don't remember the exact name of the book nor the author. I'll check it out. It was something related to the dark side of comfort. It was all this stuff. Now this book was not, I read this some years and years back, and this was not by, I think not by scientists or some, it was a psychology book. So it was all about this stuff, the dark side of comfort. When we are living in this, so we're living in this overly comforting everyday life. So what's happening again, as I described you before, a sliver of discomfort just um, disturbs our equilibrium. We overreact and we over exaggerate the pain we experience. We over exaggerate, and that is inviting suffering in your life. You have no discomfort in your life, and so slightest amount of discomfort is going to throw you off balance in a big way. Okay, but when you start pursuing something physically demanding and emotionally challenging, again pursuing bigger and bigger goals, you can do that by that in your everyday life. That is when you start getting dopamine hits, and that is the natural way to create more dopamine and pleasure in your everyday life. Like one example is a rage abroad, and even in India people are doing this, and you must have heard it. If you We all have, I think, we have this feed on our Instagram and Facebook, and if you are health conscious, which you all are, if you're watching this video, you must have heard about cold showers. And right, the cold showers are a big rage, and what they do, how do they release dopamine in your brain? It's the exact thing that we experience pain while experiencing that thing of cold shower, and the after hours that are followed by the cold shower, we get this natural amount of steady flow of dopamine, and that is immensely powerful and fulfilling, and a natural way to up level your everyday resilient. Like, it makes you, in simple words, stronger in life. Okay. And it makes you stronger to go after your dreams. Another example which you can start implementing is interval training, right? When you feel so out of breath, like, I do interval training every second day, just 10 minutes, just 3 to 4 intervals, where I run at a speed of 15 to 16, that is what my treadmill shows, kilometers. I'm like running so fast that I hate it. I hate that after a painful lactic acid, sore joints. Another thing is resistance training with heavier and heavier weights. All this, how does this produce dopamine? This is like physically, voluntarily, um, in doing the painful stuff in life, such that you become stronger. And the scientists call this that hormetic stress. So hormetic stress is little dose of painful things in your everyday life makes you stronger, makes you up level your prefrontal brain, that higher brain, or which is the seat of your awareness and wisdom and fulfillment in life. Okay, that is it for today. If you found value, I would really appreciate if you give me a thumbs up on this video. If you found value, if I would really appreciate if you share it with your friends. And I would really, really appreciate if you leave a comment, because that way I can reach more and more people. It could be an emoji, it could be a yes, it could be that you found value in this. So I would really appreciate if you leave a comment below and give me a thumbs up. And if you're watching this on Facebook, I invite you to like my page. If you are watching on Instagram, please follow me. And if you are watching this on YouTube, I invite you to subscribe and press that notification bell to be notified when I go live and post such videos. That is it. If you have any questions related to weight loss or any obstacles that you have in your weight loss journey, I would love to help you out. I did not introduce myself in the beginning. You are already watching, I'm Dr. Anu Gupta, and I specialize in permanent weight loss, such that you have this amazing relationship with food, with your body, and your life, such that this weight loss, weight gain tamasha is ended. Okay, that is my specialty. And I have a podcast also, which people are loving. And if you haven't checked out before, I would leave a link in the description. Check out my podcast, and I am sharing amazing, valuable tips even there. Today, I posted an episode which is very close to my heart. That's called the must know truth about emotional eating. That's part one of the conversation. So please check that out. Okay. So until next time, I will